For 1800 years, China hasn't stopped talking about this period. Not because of who won, but because of the men who didn't. Three figures so extraordinary, history turned them into legends. This is their story. 30 million lives. Nobody won. The empire long united must divide. Long divided must unite. Thus it has ever been. The Han Dynasty was the greatest empire on earth, but its emperors had become puppets, and the men pulling the strings were about to tear everything apart. A warlord named Dong Zhuo seized the capital, replaced the emperor with a child he could control, and anyone who objected didn't object twice. Before the three kingdoms took shape, there was one man every warlord in China feared. Not Cao Cao, not Liu Bei, Liu Bu, the most devastating warrior China had ever seen. But Liu Bu didn't just happen to end up serving the powerful. He chose them deliberately, killed for them deliberately. Loyalty wasn't something Liu Bu gave, it was something he sold. And when a better offer came along, he collected. Liu Bu would cross paths with every major player in this story, and betray every single one of them. But that is his own story. Liu Bu was the symptom. The empire was already the disease. And from its ashes, three very different men saw three very different futures. Cao Cao didn't start as a warlord. He started as a government official, a man who believed in the system enough to serve it. He enforced laws that nobody else dared enforce, punished men of power when everyone looked the other way. He believed China could be governed properly. Then he watched it collapse anyway, whatever those needed to be. Something shifted. If the system wouldn't save China, he would, on his terms, with his methods. He understood people completely, trusted almost none of them, and never once pretended otherwise. In his own words, he would rather betray the world than let the world betray him. He had royal blood and nothing else. No territory, no army, no resources. Just a name that meant something to people who still believed in what China used to be. And somehow, that was enough. When Cao Cao's million-man army turned toward him, Liu Bei had one choice that mattered: run fast and survive, or take the people with him and risk everything. Every general told him to leave them. He refused. 100,000 civilians slowed him to a crawl. Cao Cao's cavalry almost caught them. Liu Bei had almost died, protecting people who couldn't fight for him. He did it anyway. Nobody could quite explain why people followed him. But moments like that said everything. The Yangtze River had been a natural barrier long before son Quan was born, long before his father's time, long before his grandfather's. Kingdoms had risen and fallen on its northern banks for centuries, and the south had always held. Sun Quan grew up understanding something the others didn't. You don't need to conquer the whole world if you control the river that cuts it in half. He inherited that river from his brother, and he spent every day proving he deserved to keep it. At the Battle of Guan in 200 AD, Cao Cao faced Yuan Shao, the man who once commanded 18 warlords in coalition against Dong Zhuo. Yuan Shao had more men, more resources, more allies. He had everything. Cao Cao had one thing Yuan Shao didn't. He knew exactly where Yuan Shao was weakest. He burned his enemy's supplies at Wuchao and watched a superior army collapse in hours. Even Yuan Shao's own strategist defected mid-battle and handed Cao Cao the intelligence to finish it. Cao Cao welcomed him with open arms, then executed him years later for knowing too much. Every meaningful rival gone, and 70,000 prisoners who surrendered after the battle buried alive. Not a threat left standing, not a mercy left either. Then he did the unexpected. He didn't rush to proclaim himself king. A puppet emperor was far more useful than painting a target on his back. As imperial chancellor, he controlled the emperor, the court, and every decision that came out of it. The Han Dynasty still existed on paper. He made sure of that. He was the most powerful man in China, without anyone being able to say so out loud. With the north, there was only one direction left: south. He moved with 1,000,000 men and a simple message: submit or be destroyed. 2 men received that message. One had no army worth speaking of. One had a river. Neither had enough. And both knew it. 208 AD, Liu Bei won at Xinye. Outthought a superior Cao Cao force with nothing but terrain and fire. It was brilliant. It was also completely meaningless. Cao Cao had 1,000,000 men. Liu Bei had thousands. Winning one battle against Cao Cao's vanguard was like stopping a flood with your hands. When Cao Cao's massive army turned toward him, Liu Bei made a choice that defied every military instinct. He took the people with him, 100,000 civilians, elderly, women, children, all beginning the exhausting march toward the river. Cao Cao's cavalry caught them at Changban, just miles short of the riverbank. In the chaos, Liu Bei lost his own infant son in the crowd. One man rode back alone into Cao Cao's entire vanguard to find him: Zhao Yun, a general who would later become one of the 5 most legendary warriors of the entire era. He came back with the child, alone, undefeated. While Zhao Yun rode in, Zhang Fei held the bridge alone, roared across the water at Cao Cao's entire vanguard. They stopped. Nobody moved. One officer nearby, nobody recorded his name, nobody remembered his rank, fell from his horse and never got up. Those closest to him knew why, but nobody said it out loud. Liu Bei took the rescued baby and threw him to the ground, telling Zhao Yun no child was worth losing a general like him. Whether he meant it, men remembered that moment forever. With nowhere left to turn, Liu Bei had heard a rumor. A farmer, 27 years old, never commanded an army, never held office. Some said he could see the future. Desperate men believed desperate things. Liu Bei visited him 3 times, waited in the snow, refused to leave. And when the door finally opened, Zhuge Liang was already standing there, like he'd been waiting too. In that farmhouse, Zhuge Liang drew Liu Bei a map of the future. The north belongs to Cao Cao, too strong to fight directly. The east belongs to Quan, too established to take. But the west, Shu, that's where Liu Bei builds his kingdom. Form an alliance with Quan. Survive long enough, then strike. Liu Bei listened to a 27-year-old farmer describe exactly how the next 30 years would unfold. Every word came true. Across the river, a hurried messenger arrived bearing a letter, directly addressed to Quan, a declaration dressed as diplomacy. Submit or be next. His court erupted. Senior advisors argued for surrender. Junior officials looked at the floor. The room became a cacophony of men calculating their own survival. Quan said nothing. One man stood up. Zhou Yu, Quan's most brilliant general. He waited for the room to quiet, then quietly dismantled every argument for surrender. Cao Cao's ships were built for rivers, not oceans. His northern soldiers had never fought on water. His army was exhausted from months of campaigning. One battle, the right conditions, the right plan. That's all it would take. Behind him stood Lu Su, the diplomat who built alliances, and Lu Meng, the general Quan trusted most, who would one day capture Guan Yu and end the alliance in one move. 3 men who between them held Wu together. Quan would outlive all of them. Quan didn't respond with words. He drew his sword and cut the corner off his own table. The room went silent. If anyone dares to mention surrender again, he said, let this be your fate. Then he turned to Zhou Yu and handed him the sword. The decision was made, the command was given, and Zhou Yu smiled. He already had a plan. Liu Bei had one move: send his only strategist, alone, into the court of a man who had every reason not to trust him. No army, no leverage, nothing but words. Zhuge Liang walked into Wu's court, knowing that if Sun Quan said no, Liu Bei was finished. He walked in anyway, like he'd already decided how it would end. Zhou Yu saw immediately what Liu Bei had found. A mind like his own, maybe sharper. Zhou Yu devised 7 separate plans to either kill or neutralize Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang anticipated every one. Zhou Yu stopped counting. 2 men on the same side. Both knew the alliance was temporary. Both knew exactly what the other was thinking. And both knew only one of them would come out ahead when Cao Cao was gone. But whatever their private rivalry, the plan they built together was masterful. Cao Cao's ships were chained for stability. His northern soldiers couldn't fight on water, and he trusted a surrender that was never real. Huang Gai would defect, bring fireships, let the chains do the rest. 2 brilliant minds, 1 shared enemy, 1 window of opportunity, and neither man wasted it. Cao Cao had 1,000,000 men. He had the north. He had the emperor. He had everything. But he didn't know about the chains. 208 AD winter, the Yangtze River. Cao Cao looked at his fleet and saw inevitability. 1,000,000 men. Ships chained together for stability. His northern soldiers couldn't find their footing on rocking water, so he solved the problem. He threw a banquet on his command ship the night before battle, recited poetry. He wasn't performing confidence. He genuinely had no doubt. That was always Cao Cao's greatest strength. It was also, just this once, his greatest flaw. Huang Gai had spent weeks convincing Cao Cao he wanted to defect. The beatings were real, the letters were real, the surrender was not. His ships carried bundles of kindling soaked in oil. When the wind changed direction, just as Zhuge Liang said it would, he lit them and aimed them at the chains. What was designed to hold Cao Cao's fleet together tore it apart. Cao Cao watched his 1,000,000-man army burn. The man who had never lost stood and watched everything he'd built on the water turn to ash across the river. Liu Bei watched and breathed for the first time in years, and in the south, Sun Quan watched with an expression nobody in that room could quite read. Not relief, not celebration, just the look of a man who made the right calculation and was already thinking about what came next. Zhuge Liang sent Guan Yu to finish it. He knew Guan Yu wouldn't. Guan Yu had once served under Cao Cao, been treated with respect, given gifts, given the red hair horse. That debt, in Guan Yu's world, meant everything. Cao Cao arrived at the pass with nothing left, bowed from his horse, asked to be remembered. Guan Yu moved aside, let him through, went back to face execution for disobeying orders. Liu Bei pardoned him, and Zhuge Liang, who planned the whole thing, said nothing. China needed 3 kingdoms, not 1 victor, and he'd known that before the battle even started. Red Cliffs didn't end the war. It ended the idea that any one man could win it. China would stay divided, 3 kingdoms would form, and each man would spend the rest of his life paying for what that cost them. After Red Cliffs, Cao Cao never fully recovered dominance. But that wasn't his real loss. His real loss was quieter. The brilliant men who once filled his court, he killed them, one by one. Not enemies, allies. Men who knew him too well. Men who made him feel seen. Cao Cao could defeat armies. He couldn't survive intimacy. The most capable man of his era died surrounded by people who were afraid of him. Not one of them actually knew him. Sun Quan killed Guan Yu. Liu Bei lost his brother, the man who stood beside him since before he had anything worth standing for. Then Zhang Fei, who heard about Guan Yu and did what Zhang Fei always did. He turned grief into fury, ordered his men to prepare mourning clothes in 3 days. When they couldn't, he beat them, threatened their lives. That night, Fan Zhang and Zhang Da crept into his tent while he slept. Zhang Fei never closed his eyes when he slept. They froze, seeing those eyes staring back at them. Then heard the snoring. They killed him anyway. 2 men who simply didn't want to die in a war fought over a brother who was already gone. Liu Bei grieved deeply, and then he marched, against every piece of counsel Zhuge Liang gave him, against strategy, against reason, for his brothers. He lost everything at Yiling, his army, his momentum, his health. He retreated to Baedicheng, a city he never meant to stop in, and died there a year later, having avenged nothing, having lost everything he built trying. Sun Quan outlasted everyone. Zhou Yu, the genius who won Red Cliffs, dead at 35. Lu Su, the man who kept the alliance alive, gone. Lu Meng, the general he trusted most, who captured Guan Yu and ended the alliance in one move, gone. Every brilliant mind he built Wu with, dead before him. He used his sister as a political pawn, betrayed the alliance that saved him, killed the man Liu Bei loved most, won every calculation. In his final years, his own sons were already tearing each other apart. He tried to solve it, made it worse. Wu didn't collapse the moment he died. It just started dying. The man who outlasted everyone couldn't outlast his own mistakes. With 3 men, 30 years, China still divided. The man who actually won barely features in this story. While these 3 consumed each other, he waited, watched, learned, plotted. His name was Sima Yi, and the kingdom he built from their ashes lasted longer than any of them. But that is another story. In the end, was Cao Cao a tyrant? Or was he the only man who could have saved China? And Liu Bei, was his loyalty real? Or his weaponized his greatest leverage and assets? Sun Quan, what does it cost a man to be the last one standing? The river kept moving, it always did, indifferent to the men who fought over its banks, indifferent to the kingdoms they built, indifferent to the ones they lost. Thus it has ever been.
Thank you for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It'll help the channel grow and bring you even more content that you like. I'll see you in the next video.